Parents, if you've recently discovered that your teenage son is struggling with internet pornography, I want to offer you hopeful perspective today. Right now, you're probably running through a massive wave of complex emotions, confusion, fear, anxiety, and if you're like almost every parent that I sit with in my clinic, a heavy dose of guilt. You might be looking at your son and wondering, well, is his brain permanently altered? Will I ever get back to that bright, focused, emotionally present boy that I used to know? Well, as a psychotherapist specializing in adolescent recovery, I want to give you a direct, unequivocal answer. Yes, he can heal. And what you are dealing with right now, it's not a permanent defect, nor is it a simple moral failure. It's a biological challenge. Teenage brain possesses an extraordinary, almost miraculous capacity for adaptation known as neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to recognize and heal itself. But true recovery isn't an overnight switch, it's a physical process of neurological recalibration. And today, we're going to look past the behavior and look directly under the hood. We're going to break down the exact science of what is happening inside his mind and lay out the realistic week by week timeline required for his neurochemistry to reset. So, to understand how a teen gets trapped, we have to talk about a chemical that you've likely heard of, dopamine. So, think of dopamine as the brain's currency of motivation, reward, and anticipation. And in a healthy, everyday teenage brain, small microdoses of dopamine are released when your son achieves a goal or eats a good meal, laughs with a friend, or finishes a tough workout. And these small splashes of dopamine reinforce positive behaviors. They tell the brain, hey, that was good. Let's do that again. But internet pornography is what neuroscientists call a super normal stimulus. It offers an infinite variety of novelty, accessibility, and intensity that the physical world simply cannot replicate. And instead of a healthy splash of dopamine, it hits the teenage brain like a tidal wave. And now the brain is an incredibly smart organ and it operates on balance. When this massive flood of dopamine occurs repeatedly, the brain realizes that it's being overstimulated. To protect itself from damage, it activates a biological survival mechanism. It downregulates. Downregulation simply means the brain reduces the number of active dopamine receptors. So think of it like putting on heavy noise canceling headphones because the music is too loud. But here's the tragedy for your son. Once those headphones are on, the rest of the world, well, it becomes whisper quiet. This creates a state of dopamine desensitization. Suddenly, everyday activities like schoolwork, playing sports, interacting with family, or hanging out with real life friends feels incredibly dull, boring, and empty. When you see your son acting lazy or irritable or defiant, I need you to understand he isn't choosing to be a hostage to his room. His brain is physically starved for a baseline level of dopamine that only the addiction can temporarily satisfy. He's chasing a chemical equilibrium just to feel normal. Now let's take an even closer look down to the molecular level because parents often ask me, well, Matt, why is this habit so incredibly sticky? Why can't he just use his willpower and stop? Well, the answer lies in a specific transcription factor of a protein called the ΔFosB, written as delta hash FOS hash B. Molecular research spearheaded by leading neuroscientists like Dr. Eric Nestler has identified the ΔFosB as a primary driver of chronic compulsive behaviors. Every single time an individual repeatedly exploits the brain's reward pathways through high dopamine behaviors, well, this stable protein builds up and accumulates inside the neurons of the reward center. So think of delta FOSB as a molecular switch that literally locks addiction, reinforcing neural pathways into place. It acts like a biological memory of the high. So long after your son decides he wants to stop, this protein remains behind, heightening his sensitivity to triggers, magnifying visual cues, and driving deep compulsive cravings. This is why willpower alone fails. True healing isn't just a matter of changing his mind, it requires waiting for this deep-seated physical biological marker to naturally degrade and wash out of his system. And that takes time. So what happens when your son makes the brave choice to stop? What does the road back look like? When the artificial stimulation ceases, his brain enters a massive structural and chemical remodeling phase. Functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, studies conducted by researchers like Dr. Simone Kuhn shows us that the brain follows a predictable chronological sequence of recovery. So parents, let's map out the three distinct phases of this timeline so you will know exactly what to expect. So phase one, weeks 2 to 4, the initial withdrawal phase. This is without question the most volatile window of the entire journey. When a sudden drop in artificial dopamine takes hold, those overstimulated neural pathways experience acute withdrawal. During these first few weeks, your son's brain is crying out for its quick chemical fix because his dopamine receptors, well, they're still downregulated. He is going to feel a profound lack of joy and motivation. Expect intense cravings, severe irritability or anxiety, heavy brain fog, intense mood swings. His impulse control will be severely tested here. As a parent, remember this volatility isn't a sign that the recovery is failing. It's the exact opposite. It's the sound of the system resetting. So phase two, which would be days 30 to 90, the early rewiring phase, if you can help him navigate past that first month, the healing becomes tangible. Research indicates that by day 30 to day 90, those desensitized dopamine receptors begin to naturally upregulate. So the brain realizes the tidal wave isn't coming back, so it takes off the noise canceling headphones. It increases the number and sensitivity of its dopamine receptors. And this is where many parents that I work with breathe their first sigh of relief. By the 90-day mark, you will likely notice a significant return of his focus. His moods will stabilize, his impulse control will strengthen, and you'll see an awakening interest in real life hobbies, maybe back to sports and family interactions. And the world, well, is starting to taste good to him again. And then finally, phase three, 6 months to 2+ years, the long-term structural recovery. So while the chemistry resets in the first few months, repairing the physical architecture of the brain is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And the fMRI, the studies revealed that structural changes in the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain responsible for logic, judgment, evaluating consequences, and emotional regulation, this can take anywhere from several months to even a couple of years to fully normalize. The timeline depends heavily on how early they haven't started and how intense that it was. So over this extended period, those ΔFosB proteins that we talked about, they finally gradually decline. The physical pathways of addiction wither away from disuse, and the healthy, balanced architecture of his brain is then restored. Parents understanding this timeline changes absolutely everything about how you parent your son through this. It allows you to shift your lens from a perspective of moral condemnation to one of neurological rehabilitation. If he relapses in the first month, while it is incredibly discouraging, it's often a reflection of a brain drowning in the depths of chemical downregulation rather than a lack of desire to change. So what can you do? Well, here are 4 actionable strategies to implement today. Number 1, provide structure and friction. So remember, his prefrontal cortex, his brake pedal, so to speak, is essentially offline or weakened during the early weeks. So don't expect him to rely entirely on internal willpower. Help him by utilizing high quality internet filters and crucially keeping all smartphones, tablets, computers out of private spaces like bedrooms overnight. Create the boundaries that he cannot create for himself yet. Number 2, encourage natural dopamine microdoses. His brain is starving for reward. Support activities that provide slow, healthy, earned dopamine releases. So think of weightlifting or team sports or learning a musical instrument or building something with his hands, or outdoor adventures. These activities slowly retrain the brain to enjoy the process of effort and reward. Number three, normalize the discomfort. So talk to him about the science. Knowledge is power for a struggling teen. So sit down and tell him, look, your brain is going to feel incredibly bored, flat, and irritable for a few weeks. And when that happens, I want you to smile, because that is exactly how we know that your brain is healing. So take the mystery and the shame out of the withdrawal. And then number four, be the safe haven. Shame is the absolute fuel of the addiction. So if your son feels judged or scolded or cast out, the pain of that isolation will drive him right back underground to the comfort of the screen. So keep your communication lines open, objective, and deeply rooted in unconditional, unwavering love. Parents, I want to leave you with the final note of profound hope that the teenage brain is uniquely vulnerable to developing addictions because it is still actively under construction. But that exact same malleability, that exact same youth, it means that it is also profoundly, beautifully resilient at healing. And with time, steady boundary structures, and your consistent, non-judgmental support, his dopamine system will recalibrate. He can and will return to the vibrant, authentic life that he deserves. So if pornography use is causing significant distress in your home, or if it's completely interfering with your son's daily life, please don't walk this road alone. Consider reaching out to a therapist or a counselor who specializes in adolescent addiction. Now, for a comprehensive step-by-step approach, I highly recommend checking out our recovery toolbox for teens. It's an evidence-based structured program designed to guide both you as the parent and your adolescent through this exact neurological recovery process. And in some cases, families encounter serious safety risks or unmanageable behavioral issues that simply cannot be safely interrupted within the home environment. And if your teen is dealing with things like severe mental health crises or high risk online behaviors, or if they've just become entirely unresponsive to parental authority, well, an intensive, highly structured intervention may be necessary. And for those acute situations, programs like our Starguide's Wilderness Therapy offer a clinically sophisticated wilderness-based environment that is designed specifically to stabilize risks, restore emotional regulation, and to help rebuild healthy family dynamics from the ground up. Parents, you'll find links to these resources in the description box below. Thanks for watching. Keep showing up for your son. Your love and boundaries are the exact scaffolding that his brain needs to rebuild. I'll see you in the next video.